Welcome back, viewers, to the Stellar Twin Voyagers program. Today, I, Nova A239, will guide you once again in exploring the adventures of the siblings who are striving to fulfill their colorful dreams. Let's embark together on an eternal journey amidst the sea of stars. Get ready to be captivated by the wonders of the universe and stories full of hope that will inspire us all. Morning has come again, signaling another adventure of our young shepherds, Aster and Cosmo. Wake up, Cosmo, it's morning already. We need to tend to the sheep and fetch water, Aster said as he woke his younger brother. Okay, I'm up, Aster. Good morning, replied Cosmo, rubbing his eyes slowly. They both tidied up their beds and then met their parents and Grandpa in the kitchen. Good morning, Mom, Dad. Grandpa, has Grandpa left for the fields yet, Mom? Aster asked. Dad answered, not yet, Grandpa just went to see Mr. Branson quickly to buy some seedlings. He'll be back soon. Aster nodded and said, all right then, we'll go fetch water and let the sheep graze first, Dad, Mom. They both grabbed their buckets and ran down the hill to fetch water, then brought the water back home and hurried to the sheep pen. Aster opened the pen door while his brother helped release their sheep, and together they led the flock to graze and drink by the river. After they finished grazing, they promptly herded the sheep back into the pen and locked the gate before heading home. We're back, Dad, Mom, Aster said upon entering the house. Oh, Grandpa's back. Good morning, Grandpa, greeted Aster. Grandpa looked at his grandsons and said, good morning, my adorable grandsons. Come, clean your hands and feet, then sit down here with Grandpa. Aster and Cosmo nodded, then they ran to the backyard to wash up before returning to the kitchen. Mom had already laid out breakfast on the dining table. Let's all sit down together and start breakfast. Enjoy your meal, everyone said as they happily began their breakfast. After breakfast, Dad and Grandpa hurried to the fields, while the two boys helped their mom clean up the dishes. Oh, Aster, Cosmo, could you help Mom gather the chicken eggs before you go to the fields later? Mom asked. Of course, Mom, Aster replied, followed by Cosmo. We're done, Mom, we'll head to the chicken coop now, said Aster. Aster and Cosmo then grabbed a basket and hurried to the chicken coop. Cosmo helped open the co-op door, and they both entered. Carefully, they collected each chicken egg one by one and placed them in the basket. Aster then refilled the chicken feed from the back and replenished the water supply, while Cosmo refilled the water container. They locked the co-op door and quickly ran back home. Here, Mom, here are the chicken eggs, Aster said. Great, just place them on the dining table. Thank you, Mom replied gently. All right, Mom, now we're off to the fields, Aster said as he and Cosmo walked towards the fields. In the field, Dad and Grandpa were already working. Grandpa, Dad, we're here, Aster waved his hand. Ah, come here, Grandpa said. Aster and Cosmo approached their grandpa. What are we doing today, Grandpa? Asked Cosmo. We're going to start planting winter wheat. Grandpa is sowing the seeds into the soil. Come, both of you, take seeds from that sack over there and help Grandpa sow. These 2 rows are already done, Grandpa said. All right, Grandpa, Aster and Cosmo replied simultaneously. They then took an adequate amount of seeds from the sack and slowly walked while sowing the seeds into the soil. Take, sow. Eventually, their extensive field was sown with winter wheat seeds. Wow, today went by quickly, Grandpa, Aster said. We're not done yet, Dad smiled. We still need to cover it with soil and water it. Dad then walked towards a large sack filled with slightly dark soil and pulled it towards the middle of the field. Let's help Dad and Grandpa. Take a shovel of soil from this sack, then place it on the rows where you sowed the seeds earlier. Take your shovels over there, Dad said. All right, Dad, Aster and Cosmo said, following their dad's instructions. Slowly, they shoveled a quantity of soil from the sack and placed it over the rows where the seeds had been sown, then moved to another area. Slowly, they worked on each plot of the field. It was midday and the sun was shining brightly. Yes, there's still half of the field left. Let's stop for now and continue after lunch. Aster, Cosmo, go home and fetch lunch, then come back to the field, Grandpa said. All right, Grandpa, they both said, placing their tools down and running home. Shortly after, they ran back to the field. Dad, Grandpa, we brought lunch. Let's eat together, Aster said. All right, let's tidy up a bit here first. You two sit in the shed and open your lunch boxes. We'll join you shortly, Dad said. Aster and Cosmo rested in the shed, taking out their lunch boxes one by one. Shortly after, Dad and Grandpa finished and walked towards the shed. Wow, the sun is intense but the air is getting cooler, Dad said. Aster, Cosmo, you should wear thicker clothes tomorrow, otherwise you might shiver or catch a cold. All right, let's eat now. The small family enjoyed their lunch happily, discussing the field and the chirping birds in the sky. Ah, we're done already. Truly full. Dad, I'll get back to work now, Dad said. Grandpa nodded, then drank a glass of water and rested for a while. All right, now it seems more relaxed. Do you want to hear another story today? Grandpa asked. Yes, Grandpa, both grandchildren replied. All right, Grandpa will start. Today, I'll talk about our Earth, how our Earth is one of the planets in the solar system and it's important to understand the planet we live on. Our Earth is actually composed of several different layers in terms of composition, temperature, and pressure. First, there's the Earth's crust. There are 2 types. The continental crust, with a thickness of 20 to 70 km, formed mainly from granite, containing feldspar, quartz, and mica, with a density of about 2.7 grams per cc. The second is the oceanic crust, with a thickness of 5 to 10 km, formed mainly from basalt and gabbro, containing pyroxene and plagioclase. Its density is around 3.0 grams per centimeter cubed. The Earth's crust is the outermost hard and brittle layer, consisting of tectonic plates that move. Next, there's the Earth's mantle. This can be divided into 3 sublayers. The first sublayer is the upper mantle, with a thickness of about 410 kilometers. Its composition is mainly peridotite olivine, pyroxene. This includes the rigid lithosphere and the plastic asthenosphere. Then there's the transition zone sublayer, with a thickness of about 410-660 kilometers. Here, there's a mineral change from olivine to wachsleite and ringwoodite. The third sublayer is the lower mantle, with a thickness of 660-2,900 kilometers. This is formed from silicate minerals with a perovskite structure. This sublayer is denser and experiences slow convection that moves the tectonic plates. There's also the Mohorovičić discontinuity, MOHO, which is the boundary between the crust and the mantle. This is marked by a sudden change in seismic wave velocity. There's also the Gutenberg discontinuity region, which is the boundary between the lower mantle and the outer core. Its depth is about 2,900 kilometers. Here, there's a sudden change in seismic wave velocity, indicating the transition from solid mantle to liquid outer core. The next layer is the Earth's core, which can be divided into 2 sublayers. First, there's the outer core, with a thickness of 2,900-5,150 kilometers. This is formed from a mixture of iron and nickel with light elements like sulfur and oxygen. The outer core is liquid and generates Earth's magnetic field through dynamo motion. Then, there's the inner core, with a thickness of 5,150-6,371 kilometers. This is formed from solid iron and nickel. The high pressure in the inner core keeps it solid despite its very high temperature, around 5,000 to 7,000 degrees Celsius. There's also the Lyman discontinuity, LD, which is the boundary between the outer core and the inner core. This is marked by a sudden change in seismic wave velocity, indicating the transition from liquid core to solid inner core. So, to summarize, Earth's crust has a temperature of 200 to 400 degrees Celsius at its lower boundary, with a density of 2.7-3.0 grams per centimeter cubed and is formed from silicates and other minerals. Then there's the mantle, with a temperature of 500 to 4,000 degrees Celsius, density 3.3-5.7 grams per centimeter cubed, formed from iron and magnesium-rich silicates. Next is the outer core, with a temperature of 4,000 to 6,000 degrees Celsius, density 9.9-12.2 grams per cc, formed from liquid iron with nickel and light elements. Lastly, the inner core, with a temperature of 5,000 to 7,000 degrees Celsius, density 12.8-13.1 grams per cc, formed from solid iron with nickel. Earth itself has various surface forms called land and ocean relief. These are no less fascinating than the reliefs on celestial objects we've discussed. First, Grandpa will start with land relief. First, there are mountains. Generally tall and towering, mountains often have steep peaks. Mountains are formed through tectonic processes like plate collisions and volcanic activity. Examples include Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro. Then there are plateaus, high and relatively flat areas formed by crustal uplift or volcanic activity. Examples are the Tibetan Plateau and the Deccan Plateau in India. Next, valleys are low areas usually located between mountains or hills, formed by erosion from rivers or glaciers. Examples include the Nile River Valley and Yosemite Valley. Next up are hills, smaller and lower than mountains, with gentler slopes. Examples are the Appalachian Hills and the Shropshire Hills in England. Then there are plains, extensive flat or gently rolling areas, usually fertile and suitable for agriculture. Examples include the Great Plains in North America and the Siberian Plain. Mountain ranges are groups of mountains geographically connected, such as the Rocky Mountains in North America and the Andes Mountains in South America. Peninsulas are land areas surrounded by water on three sides but connected to the mainland, like the Iberian Peninsula in Europe and the Korean Peninsula in Asia. There are deltas, where rivers meet the sea or a lake, depositing sediment to form fertile land. Examples are the Nile River Delta in Egypt and the Mekong River Delta in Southeast Asia. Deserts are very dry areas with little rainfall, such as the Sahara Desert in Africa and the Gobi Desert in Asia. Forests are areas filled with trees and vegetation, like the Amazon rainforest in South America and the Congo rainforest in Africa. Next, let's discuss water and ocean relief. First, the deep sea, the deepest part of the ocean, usually over 2,000 meters deep with extreme pressure and temperature conditions. Examples include the Mariana Trench and the Tonga Trench. Continental shelves are shallow oceanic areas around continents, usually less than 200 meters deep. Examples are the North Atlantic Continental Shelf and the Siberian Continental Shelf. Continental slopes are steep slopes connecting continental shelves to the deep sea, such as the Antarctic Continental Slope and the West African Continental Slope. Mid-ocean ridges are underwater mountain ranges formed by volcanic activity at divergent plate boundaries, like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and the Mid-Indian Ridge. Abyssal plains are vast, flat areas on the ocean floor between mid-ocean ridges and deep-sea trenches, such as the East Pacific Abyssal Plain and the Atlantic Abyssal Plain. Trenches are deep depressions on the ocean floor, usually formed in subduction zones. Examples include the Mariana Trench and the Peru-Chile Trench. Seamounts are underwater volcanic mountains that rise from the ocean floor but do not reach the water surface, like Mauna Kea Seamount in the Pacific Ocean and Loihi Seamount in Hawaii. Basins are large depressions on the ocean floor containing sediment deposited by erosion and material deposition, such as the North Atlantic Basin and the West Pacific Basin. Rivers are flowing bodies of water from their source to the sea, lake, or another river, like the Amazon River in South America and the Mississippi River in North America. Lakes are bodies of water surrounded by land, like Lake Superior in North America and Lake Baikal in Russia. Lagoons are shallow bodies of water separated from the sea by coral reefs, sand, or other natural barriers, such as the Venice Lagoon in Italy and the Tahiti Lagoon in Polynesia. Straits are narrow water channels connecting larger bodies of water, such as the Strait of Gibraltar connecting the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, and the Strait of Malacca connecting the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Plains are extensive flat or gently rolling areas, typically found on land but can also exist on the ocean floor, like continental shelves such as the Great Plains in North America. Next, Grandpa will tell us about various ecosystems on Earth. There are several terrestrial ecosystems. Firstly, the tropical rainforest. This forest has high rainfall throughout the year, warm temperatures, and very high biodiversity. Examples include the Amazon rainforest in South America and the Congo rainforest in Africa. Secondly, the deciduous forest. Trees shed their leaves in winter, characterized by a moderate climate with 4 seasons. Examples are the deciduous forests in Europe and North America. Next, the taiga forest, boreal forest. This is a coniferous forest with long, cold winters. Examples are the Siberian taiga and the Canadian taiga. Then there's the savanna. This is a tropical grassland with scattered trees, distinct wet and dry seasons. Examples include the African savanna and the Australian savanna. There's also the grassland, dominated by grass with few trees and moderate rainfall. Examples are the Great Plains in North America and the steppe in Russia. Then there's the desert. Rainfall is very low here, with very high daytime and very low nighttime temperatures. Examples are the Sahara Desert in Africa and the Gobi Desert in Asia. There's also the tundra. Here, it's very cold, with low vegetation like mosses and lichens, and frozen soil permafrost. Examples include the Arctic tundra and the alpine tundra. Meanwhile, there are several types of aquatic ecosystems. Firstly, freshwater ecosystems. These consist of lakes, rivers, springs, and wetlands. Freshwater has low salinity. Examples are Lake Superior in North America, the Nile River in Africa, and Lake Baikal in Russia. Then there are marine ecosystems. These include oceans, coral reefs, and estuaries. Saltwater has high salinity. Examples are the Caribbean Sea and the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Additionally, there are estuarine ecosystems. These are transitional zones where freshwater from rivers meets saltwater from the sea, highly productive and crucial for marine life. Examples are the Thames Estuary in England and the Mekong Delta in Southeast Asia. Finally, there are mangrove ecosystems. These are found in tropical and subtropical coastal areas with mangrove trees adapted to salty environments. Examples are the mangroves in the Florida Everglades and the Sundarbans mangrove forest in Bangladesh. Perhaps that's it from Grandpa. How was it? Interesting, right? Grandpa asked. Wow, there's still so much about Earth that I didn't know. We really do have a lot to learn, Cosmo, Aster replied. Cosmo nodded in agreement. Seeing his 2 grandchildren, Grandpa smiled and said, exactly. Even our Earth, which is just a speck in the universe, holds so many mysteries. And there's still much more for us to discover. You're both still very young, with plenty of time ahead of you. Make the best use of your time, alright, Grandpa, we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us, Aster said. Grandpa nodded with a smile and walked towards the fields. That concludes today's episode of the Stellar Twin Voyagers. Wasn't it fascinating and enjoyable? Would you also like to hear more amazing stories from the adventures of our young shepherd boy as they write their tales amidst millions of pearls in the night sky? Therefore, stay with us on this program, and we'll meet again in the next episode. In short, I'm Nova A239, very happy to share stories with you today. Until next time, let's continue to pursue our